Update with Lexi. And today what we're going to focus on is sort of one of her weakest links, which is restoring the full function to her right hind leg. So what we're going to play with is small circles with the neck straight and the back level. And if I do my job, which is resisting any twisting of the spine, which results in side-to-side rolling of the barrel, and I help her stabilize her head and neck in line to my seat bones, which is the middle of the spine between the moving shoulders, then that support of the spine is what helps her figure out how to place that right hind leg a little deeper and start to use it to control her own body weight a little better. That's the point of engagement. And so with Lexi, where we started with her was a very strong habit of dropping her back and doing all of her competitive work while she was in spinal extension, which is the downward direction of the spine. Every time the spine pushes down, you're going to get kind of a hypermobility or a hyper-twisting side to side called rotation. So hyperrotation is always the side effect of the back pushing down. And part of the way we know the back is going down instead of up is because we feel a lot of side to side rocking under the saddle. And in Lexi's case, it was also an asymmetrical side-to-side rocking where her spine sort of stayed a little bit more dorsal side left. So the rocking was exaggerated this way, right? The barrel under the saddle. It was sort of exaggerated that way to the point that she overloaded her left front so much that she crushed the heels and couldn't grow hoof on that left front because it was taking too much body weight. The root cause of that overloading of the front left is the underfunctionality, underuse of the right hind. And it often goes diagonally across the body like that, but not always. My kitty's here to help again. So Lexi also had a known injury, I want to say a fracture of some sort. Oh yeah, we have a loose horse. Hopefully the camera doesn't follow him and it keeps following us. I forgot about that. I hope it doesn't screw up the pivot. I know, what does the pivot choose to do if we've got two horses in the same, maybe the one moving is the one it will follow. So if I'm in and out of the frame, my apologies, but I'm not going to change what I'm doing probably this whole ride because restoring the function to Lexi's right hind leg has been a work in progress, and I take advantage of these hot days to just work in a little bit of shade and really try to warm up and use until it gets comfortable and smooth that weaker hind leg. So the stopping is normal. As soon as she starts to kind of feel that hind leg working, oh good. I think the pivot stayed with us. Okay. So where we worked with Lexi previously to get her out of extension was sort of working on untwisting that habitual left twist, left lateral bend that she kept in her spine. And her buddy went back into his paddock, so she's a little bit looky. But we're just going to stay focused on a level back, a straight neck, allowing the halt, repeating the forward aid as needed, but kind of giving her a minute to figure out how to do that. So as soon as she halts, my leg is on. My leg is off as long as she's moving. She can pick the speed. I'm not urging her to go fast or slow. The speed is entirely up to her because she needs that in order to figure out how to use the weaker leg better. When she stops, my leg goes on. I give a tap with the whip. I keep the neck straight, but I'm not in a hurry to get her moving again. I'm giving her time to think through any change of organization. So this particular exercise is how I typically target specific areas in the horse's body that have really been chronically underused and have become almost non-functional. So Lexi had been working with her back dropped, doing some upper level work to the point that she had really lost all hindquarter engagement. So just getting a little bit of engagement while we worked on getting the spine more aligned, less twisted over to the left, all of that shifted her into the posture of long and low. She could be ridden on a loose rein and she could start to control her speed. She used to be way too fast wherever we were going, high-headed, tight in the neck, and quite anxious. So she's calmer now, she's more focused when we're working. This is what I would say, she's in the learning frame of mind. She's not really distracted very much. She's not anxious. I've got calm energy. The ears are mostly sort of half out or back on me. And so her struggle at this point is entirely related to the physical coordination. And changing coordination is a much bigger deal than sometimes we think it's going to be. Kind of like learning to ride a bike. We can't make the horse have correct mechanical use of the body. We can guide, but ultimately the horse has to figure it out. So I've got to leave a very large margin for experimentation, right? If I just focus on maintaining internal straightness, which is a combination of resisting any rolling side to side of the barrel, which is really a twisting of the spine. And I feel when she does that because she tries to put me off to one side or the other. The back muscles tighten as the spine twists. Back muscles tighten on the opposite side of the bones. And we feel a direct upward force on one seat bone compared to the other. So if I just keep internally shifting my body weight over that one seat bone that she's trying to lift, and I resist that lift, he's fine, he's in his paddock eating hay, then I make her dysfunctional habit less comfortable for her to maintain, and she's going to explore getting comfortable with my body weight and my stability in the way of the imbalance or the lack of function through the hind leg. Her stopping a lot, her neck up and down, all of that is just her telling me that it's difficult. And I go, yeah, I know, I get it. So Deb and I did a podcast about warming horses up. And this is a great example. When I know that just letting her mooch around on a loose rein is only going to reinforce that pattern of underusing the right hind and overloading the left front, at a certain point, I go, that's not the way to warm up, right? She's past the point where we have to go really gradual. She's made enough improvements that we can start to tackle some of the known challenges. And every horse has different known challenges. So like for Rafalco, who I show, it's just general engagement with both hind legs. He was so disengaged. It's taken a while to build up the engagement, the stability of the pelvis, and keep both hind legs working equally. He's a little bit crooked, but not as crooked as Lexi was. With Lexi, we had to take quite a long time to overcome the asymmetry, that imbalance left to right, without really focusing on engagement until more recently. So with Lexi, her warm-up, no matter what I'm doing, is this. Just circling on a tight turn to the right until she quits trying to halt all the time, until she can maintain a long, supple neck, and until she feels more level and stable under the saddle. So because her issue is significant and it's gone on a while, she's 20 years old, she's been doing that, moving in that habit, that habitual coordination without using the right hind much for a long time. So restoring that function happens faster, but not fast. Like it's not something we can get immediately. So we work on it. So her particular warm-up to keep moving her to balance is a little bit of a warm-up to the right on a small circle at the walk until she not only uses the hind leg better, which I will feel, but feels comfortable doing so. And you can see right now the halting, the distraction, the neck up and down, all of that is her telling me it's not easy. It's not comfortable, right? I feel it's not stable, and that's why she tightens her neck and curls it so much, is because she's still seeking stability through the neck and front end because she doesn't trust her hind end, especially with the right hind, on the inside of a turn. So we work on it, and I forgot to look at my watch to see what time we started, but I'll just go. I'm not sure how long this video will be, hopefully not too long. I like to just keep it about 20 minutes, but she may take the whole ride 45 to 60 minutes, depending on her breathing, because it's kind of hot. We're sweating in the shade. To see if I can feel the ease come through, feel the pattern change. There goes the left shoulder adjustment. So that little clunky move was all the soft tissues in the thoracic sling, particularly around the left front leg and shoulder. They just changed tone. And I call it a shoulder clunk because it happens fast like that. It feels like the horse stepped in a hole. But it's a muscular tonal change. So I don't have to do anything fancy to restore the correct muscle use in the entire thoracic sling. What I have to do is actually get the right hind leg to do more of its fair share of the work, controlling balance and body weight, so that she doesn't overload the left front. And as soon as that starts to happen, all the muscles that are in what we call the thoracic sling, when they're no longer playing the role of stabilizing the body in motion, you get spontaneous muscular changes. And I hope it's not too loud in the back room. I've got two neighbors weed whacking, mowing, doing their 4th of July stuff. Got a loose horse, and I got the ubiquitous kitty cat in every video. So it's a little chaotic. And hopefully that edger or weed whacker doesn't go on for a while. But if you hear a buzz in the background, that's what it is. And Lexi has made enough improvements that used to be a big deal, and now we just ignore it. And we focus internally on getting that both hind legs working, getting that pelvis level. And you can see this is a great summer project. We can see how difficult it is for her. Now, if I couldn't get her to go forward at all, and I had to get firmer with the whip or leg than I am, then I would say, okay, this is a bit too much for her right now. But even though she's slow, even though it's a bit erratic, even though the use is sort of coming and going, and we're getting better, we're getting worse, overall, she's trying, she's willing to try, and she's making changes as we go. So even the halting, right? I was just going to say right before she halted, even the halting will start to go away or become less. Yeah, and my neighbor's full on with the power tools, so hopefully that doesn't affect the sound on this video. My apologies if there's a buzzy noise in the background. Yeah. So we're just going to keep going, and I think I'll video until I start to feel a few strides of what I'm looking for. So far, I'm having to resist more of what I don't want her to do, and she hasn't quite figured out how to change her coordination in the way that the back is more level, the neck stays long, the hindquarter is more level, and she feels more comfortable using that right hind leg. That's the goal. And so I have a couple of options. Like today, I'm choosing to focus on this as the work. Other days, because this is kind of intense, I might just do this for 10, 15 minutes and then go do something else. So I might just play with it a little bit at a time with that right hind leg. And as she gets halting more, or it gets harder to get her to go forward, I might need to make the job easier. There, and I got another muscular change around the right front leg. My neighbor's doing his entire driveway with the edger, which is pretty loud. Oh my God, it sounds so good when the mowers stop. Same reason I hate blowers in barns. I just find that noise really irritating. Good girl. Good girl. So there I'm starting to get barely enough stability and functionality with the right hind that she's starting to lengthen her neck, and she's not slamming on the brakes immediately. She's still stopping a lot, but this is sort of the improvement I was looking for. And like I said, I forgot to look at my watch, so I don't know how much time it's taken, but that's just the first hint of the change I'm looking for. That's a little better. And my circle obviously doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to encourage the forward, being as light as possible with my aids, but as heavy as I need to be to keep the neck straight, keep the back level, and encourage the forward, right? And so this is something we've been working on in small doses. Every once in a while I do a whole ride focusing on it. And because her twist was so habitual and severe, and because she also had the habit of being disengaged in general, when I feel she's up for it, or I get the opportunity, by really what I call gently hammering, sort of just quietly repeating the aids, staying on the path of travel or the exercise that's helping facilitate the change, and not changing anything else, right? Just letting her slowly make those improvements. And mentally, it takes a lot of concentration on our part as riders to keep adjusting our balance as she's changing. Let's go. Now that's interesting. So the backwards sometimes can be an exploration. And again, if I'm just patient with her process, no rider has any idea what any horse is actually feeling or can predict how any specific horse is going to make changes. That's so unique to every individual that we have to allow a lot of room for error, trial and error. And there's nothing the horse can do wrong. I go, if she's calm and she's mentally focused, she's doing the best she can to make these changes. She's not being disobedient. She's very cooperative. She's not defensive. The stopping a lot is part of her process. The slowing down is part of her process. The neck up and down, the wobbly side to side, all of that is part of her process. right? And this is where if we're gentle and we're specific, we don't need to kind of quote unquote give them a break, because the whole point of restoring the balance is that the movement is the reward, right? The change of movement brings muscular tension release, it brings more ease, it feels better, it feels more efficient. So instead of thinking I have to work her and give her a break, we just gently keep going, because the change in her coordination and finding more ease of motion is the reward. It just feels better. It feels easier, right? So our time is spent very quietly, but very directly, restoring functional use to a leg that has improved function in the work we've done so far, but you can see is not functional to the point that it's easy and comfortable for her. So that tells me this is still needs attention, needs some work, and we need some practice. Yeah. So now I'm getting more and more often kind of a softening all the way through the back and the neck, right? She's going to speed up a little, she's going to slow down a little, she's going to halt as often as she feels it's necessary, right? Seeking stability is always more important than anything else. So if she gets to a point of instability in her body, she just stops. That's why we have to allow it and be slow to regain the forward. Very good. Very good. Now it's starting to feel a tiny bit smoother, a tiny bit easier. I'm getting less force against both my right and left seat bone, because she's been switching back and forth, pushing up on my right seat bone, pushing up on my left seat bone, which tells me the engagement in general is maybe more the challenge than just the right hind leg now, which is a positive change in the right direction, right? As she lengthens her neck, she still doesn't quite have the coordination to control her stability through her back muscles and hindquarter. And that's another reason, as soon as horses let go of the neck where they've been stabilizing, they're not yet familiar enough with stabilizing through the back and hindquarter that they can control, like there, the body weight falling forward. And a lot of times when that happens, they stop, because they feel the fall forward. They feel the instability. Yeah. But by sort of fixing up one of the weakest of the four legs, at the same time encouraging more engagement in general, and keeping the spine aligned, straight, nose pole to tail, and level, reducing any rotation or twisting of the spine left to right, that starts to pull three different aspects of balance together, and that's where we're going to get the next improvement. Whoa, that would be a shoulder clunk. So she had one of those on the left front, that was a small one on the right front, and that was a pretty substantial one on the right front. And the reason we get those shoulder clunks all the time is because once the back and hindquarter are starting to do what they're supposed to do mechanically, which is provide stability and internal body weight control during motion, all that tightness in her neck and through the entire thoracic sling around both front legs, those wobbly shoulders, all of that changes at the very same rate that from here to the tail becomes stable and fully functional. From here to the head can let go of taking over that temporary, unplanned role of having to stabilize the body, right? As soon as those front legs have less weight, you increase mobility. As soon as you have less weight and more mobility, all the muscles of the thoracic sling just start to change tone. Some will have less tension, some will have more tension because they're beginning to work in a different way. But those shoulder clunks are like a spontaneous chiropractic adjustment that happen all the time because the muscles of the thoracic sling are no longer having to stabilize the body in motion. So the legs change. They change their relationship to the midline, rib cage, and pelvis, and start to also restore healthy function. So you can see by sort of hammering on the weakest link, keeping it gentle, right? But actually saying, this is what we're going to work on. I know it's hard, darling, but let's keep trying. We're only going to get better at it the more we go, right? And encouraging her with a light leg and a quick tap of the whip is just sort of saying, you can do it. You can do it. Just where I feel she kind of wants to halt or shut down or push backwards, tiny bit of leg, a tap with the whip, just encourages her to figure it out, right? But it takes a lot of concentration. It's not easy for her. Just a little bit more correct function of the right hind is changing everything. Is changing everything through her midline, around both front legs, and through her neck. Very good. Very good. So now she's starting, and there's my halt again. Just as I was sort of feeling like she got it, she goes, no, wait a minute, I don't got it. So it's just starting to feel more stable and a little bit smooth. And this is interesting too. I find it really common that as I feel the back and hindquarter do more of the work they're supposed to do, I know the front legs are becoming less loaded with internal body weight. And a lot of horses do that. They want to stop and itch. And sometimes we think they have flies, sometimes we think they're itching their face. I sort of suspect, and this is just a complete theory that I have nothing to support it with, but I sort of suspect that as the front legs become lighter, especially after those shoulder clunks, right, that we're also increasing circulation, and that might make them itchy, a little bit like pins and needles in the legs, maybe the feet. And because when muscles hold excessive tension, which is what the front end has to do if the hind end and back are not taking over the role of stability, the front end will. And whenever we have excessively tight muscles, we're also reducing circulation. Oh, I hope the camera is still following me. I think so. Okay. Yep. Because Rafalco came back in. So I'll just do a little bit more. But this is just the first hint of her starting to feel comfortable enough with this change in coordination. And there we lost everything. That got very wiggly wobbly. And we had another little change around that right shoulder. And she's got to itch again. This is all so normal in rehab. It's just normal. And if I don't make her feel wrong for it, and I understand, even when I work with a rider, how a rider uses their body, changing internal coordination can be really disorienting and make it feel, we feel weird. We're not quite sure where our feet go for a little while. We're not quite sure if we like it or don't like it. And horses experience the same thing. So just as I was starting to feel it get smoother and easier and more comfortable, she's suddenly going, wait a minute, I'm not sure about this. Even though physically, I think it's much more comfortable. She might have pins and needles in her front leg. She's had 3 or 4 big shoulder adjustments today, front leg adjustments. She might be feeling a little funny in the hind legs, kind of trying to knock those joints back into full function. And you see there, it starts to feel better. That's just a little hint of what I'm trying to accomplish in this ride. The back was level, the back softened, but it didn't catapult me. It was easier for me to sit quietly, right? She lengthened the neck and she kept going with her hind legs instead of stopping. So for just a brief couple of strides, the movement got very smooth, very comfortable. And there she takes a nice deep breath and has a blow. And my neighbor's quieted down for a little bit. So I'm just going to do a few more minutes because this is the transition from me having to say to her with my aids, don't do that, and don't do that, and don't do that, and don't do that. And then as her balance improves and she starts to get that coordination, my aids become lighter and less frequent. And that's what self-carriage is. When she starts to find this change of coordination that is easier and more efficient, I should not have to give as many aids or strong aids, right? And that's what I'm starting to feel, that smoothness starting to come through, right? And she really likes to say, no, I can't do that. So my tap tap with the whip right after my light leg aid just keeps telling her, yes, you can. Let's try. Yes, you can. Let's try. And I have to encourage her because she's moving in literally new territory for her inside her skin. I know your friend is here. Great. So I think since I first looked at my watch, I know I've been going at least 20 minutes, so I will wrap it up. But I wanted to show, quote unquote, the warm-up phase, and now we're shifting into the let's own it phase, right? So I'm not going to change what I'm doing because it's just now starting to feel easier for her. And like I said, the coordination is the reward. The ease of motion is the reward. So if I stop at this point, I had to spend most of my ride saying, don't do that, but she didn't figure out what to do instead. Now that she's figuring out what she needs to do, now every step is going to build that new habit, strengthen it in the nervous system, use the right muscles, use the joints appropriately, and start to move the body into a new habit of better movement, right? And this whole ride, even though she's still stopping, still going to her neck, still challenged, the steps in between the corrections are getting smoother and easier for both of us. But this is what it looks like to pick on the weakest link in the body, right? And she would look better if I just let her mask it, which is what she's been doing for years, and sort of get by on 3 legs with 1 leg to spare. That's what most horses do. But to go in and really gently tackle the problem, restore the function, this is kind of what it looks like. And it might not be exciting to watch, but it is super intense to do. It takes a lot of awareness, a lot of concentration on her part as well as my part, but it's very simple work so that the focus can be on entirely on what's going on the inside, on every little change and feel as we go round and round our right circle. So I will stop the video there and then we'll keep going.